The courtroom in El Paso, Texas, was oppressively quiet, save for the faint hum of outdated air conditioning struggling against the desert heat. The room was half-filled, but the weight of judgment made it feel like a packed arena. Paint chipped off the walls in jagged patches, and the fluorescent lights flickered, casting harsh shadows. At the defense table stood Sergeant Luis Alvarez, 34, a recently honorably discharged U.S. Army logistics specialist of Mexican descent, who had served 10 years navigating supply chains through war zones. He clutched a worn leather binder stuffed with handwritten notes, logistics diagrams, and the blueprint of his dream, a small trucking business serving local communities. Luis wore no suit, just a crisp, navy button-up shirt and boots polished to a mirror shine, a nod to his military discipline. Across the room, perched on the elevated bench, was Judge Harold Grayson, 60, a man with a reputation for dismissing what he called delusional schemes from defendants, especially those he deemed unlikely to succeed due to their background. His sharp eyes scanned Luis with a mix of skepticism and something uglier, prejudice that lingered in the curl of his lip. Luis wasn't in court for a crime. He was here because of a dispute with his apartment complex manager over a lease terminated early when he fell behind on rent, followed by a debt collection case for the $4,200 balance. The hearing required him to disclose his financial situation, including his application for a small business loan to start Alvarez Freight Company. Before Luis could fully explain, Judge Grayson interrupted, his voice thick with condescension. "You expect this court to believe, Mr. Alvarez, that you, a man who couldn't pay rent last month, sleeping in a borrowed trailer, will build a trucking empire? In this economy? With your circumstances?" The word circumstances hung in the air, laced with an unspoken jab at Luis's heritage. The sparse gallery, mostly other debtors and a few curious locals, shifted uncomfortably. Luis stood taller, his jaw tight but his tone respectful. "Yes, Your Honor. It's not a fantasy. It's a strategy." Grayson chuckled, a low, dismissive sound. "Strategy doesn't pay bills, son. Money does. Networks do. You've got none of those. Stick to something realistic, something suitable." The gallery stayed silent, but a few heads shook slightly, recognizing the sting of Grayson's words. Luis's face didn't betray the burn of the judge's bias. "With respect, sir, when I was in Afghanistan, they said I wouldn't last 3 months in logistics under fire. I'm still here." A ripple of murmurs passed through the room. Grayson waved a hand, unimpressed. 60 days, Mr. Alvarez. Show me sustainable income, or I'll enter a judgment against you. This court doesn't indulge pipe dreams." The gavel cracked like a whip. Court adjourned. Luis gathered his binder, his movements deliberate, his posture unyielding. He didn't glare or mutter. He walked out with the calm of a man who'd faced worse than a judge's sneer. What Grayson didn't know was that Luis Alvarez wasn't just carrying a binder. He was carrying a plan that would turn this courtroom's doubt into dust. That night, Luis sat at a wobbly table in a 24-hour taqueria, the scent of sizzling carne asada mixing with the faint tang of diesel from his clothes. His binder lay open under the glow of a neon abierto sign. The court order sat heavy in his pocket. 60 days to prove he wasn't chasing a mirage. Outside, a late summer storm battered the streets of El Paso. Inside, Luis sketched routes and budgets, his pen moving with the precision of a soldier plotting a mission. He'd survived ambushes in Kandahar, rerouted convoys under mortar fire. He didn't need a savior. He needed a map. He broke his future into 3 parts, the way he'd planned supply lines overseas. 1. Find the gap. 2. Gather assets. 3. Execute flawlessly. First, the gap. Luis knew the border region's small businesses, mom-and-pop shops, family farms, and local artisans, were bleeding money on overpriced, unreliable shipping from corporate giants. Many were Latino-owned, underserved by companies that didn't bother with bilingual contracts or flexible terms. Luis saw opportunity where others saw struggle. A logistics service tailored to these businesses, with fair rates and personal trust. Second, assets. He had a 15-year-old Ford F-250, dented but paid off, a $1,200 VA entrepreneurship grant, and a refurbished laptop. He charted every small business within 150 miles, orchards, mercados, and textile workshops. Third, execution. He built a no-frills website on a free platform, Alvarez Freight Company, veteran-driven, community-focused. He promised same-day deliveries, transparent pricing, and bilingual support. He printed flyers at a local library, stapling them to community boards and slipping them under shop doors. Starting that Monday, Luis hit the ground, knocking on doors from El Paso to Las Cruces, pitching to owners who reminded him of his tios and primas. No salary, no safety net, just faith and footwork. The first week was brutal. 12 rejections, 4 will calls, and 1 yes. A family-owned pecan farm needed weekly deliveries to local grocers and markets. The contract was small, $250 a week, but it was a pulse. Luis knew a single spark could keep a fire alive. He didn't throw a party. He tucked the signed agreement into his binder and kept moving. By week 2, he'd landed 3 more clients: a tortilla factory, a craft brewery, and a co-op of women weaving traditional textiles. Each contract was modest, but together they showed progress. $900 a week in revenue. He tracked every mile, every expense, every handshake. He was building something real, something no judge could laugh off. Then came the first blow. A county inspector, acting on what he called a routine tip, showed up at the taqueria where Luis planned his routes. "Mr. Alvarez, you're running a commercial freight operation without a DOT carrier permit. That's a violation." Luis's stomach dropped. Overseas, short-haul logistics didn't require this permit, and his clients hadn't flagged it. "What's the cost?" he asked, voice steady. $1,600 for the permit, plus a $900 fine for operating without it. The math was a knife. His total profit was $2,400. Paying would wipe him out, leaving him back at zero, begging the court for leniency. That night, in the cramped trailer he borrowed from a cousin, Luis stared at the ceiling. Quitting would be easy. The world wouldn't blink at another Latino veteran crushed by red tape, another stereotype confirmed. But Luis hadn't faltered when his convoy took RPG fire in Helmand. He wasn't folding now. He opened his laptop and scoured every resource he could find: veteran business networks, local chambers of commerce, minority-owned business grants. At 3 a.m., he found it: the Valor Venture Challenge, a pitch competition for veteran entrepreneurs. Grand prize: $6,000, legal support for licensing, and a year of mentorship. The deadline was in 9 days. Luis leaned back, a tired grin breaking through. 9 days was plenty. He thrived in the clutch. Luis attacked the Valor Venture Challenge like it was his last mission. After deliveries, he camped out in the taqueria, laptop glowing, tacos untouched. He drafted a business plan with the rigor of a battle report: client growth projections, fuel costs per mile, break-even analysis, all backed by his 4 signed contracts and delivery logs. He didn't inflate numbers or lean on his veteran status for sympathy. He let the math speak. The application demanded a video pitch. Luis had no budget for polish, so he filmed it himself at dawn, standing beside his battered truck, sleeves rolled up, the desert sunrise behind him. "My name is Luis Alvarez. I'm a veteran, a son of immigrants, and a founder. Alvarez Freight Company isn't just a business. It's a promise to my community. We deliver trust, not excuses. I don't need a handout. I need a shot." He uploaded it at 11:52 p.m., 8 minutes before the deadline. Then he waited, the same quiet adrenaline in his veins he'd felt before night patrols. He'd done his part. Now he delivered crates, logged invoices, and prepared for courtroom 4C. On a humid Tuesday, Luis was unloading crates of pecans at a mercado when his phone buzzed. "This is Carla Mendoza from the Valor Venture Challenge. Is this a good time?" His pulse quickened. "Yes, ma'am." She didn't pause. "Your pitch was exceptional, data-driven, grounded, and honest. We're thrilled to name you this year's winner. Congratulations, Sergeant." Luis gripped the tailgate, the world tilting. You'll receive $6,000 by Friday, full licensing support, mentorship, and a feature in our newsletter. Your story isn't just about you. It's about what's possible. Luis managed a quiet thank you before his voice caught. After the call, he sat in his truck, staring at the horizon, letting the moment sink in. No cheers, just the steady breath of a man who'd just been told his fight wasn't in vain. By week's end, he was fully licensed, the fine paid, and Alvarez Freight Company was official in the state of Texas. The $6,000 check went into a new folder alongside the court documents. Luis circled the return date to courtroom 4C. This time, he wasn't walking in with hope. He was walking in with evidence. Courtroom 4C was as unforgiving as before. Same chipped walls, same stale air. But Luis Alvarez was different. His boots were the same, but his binder was now a sleek portfolio, each page tabbed and labeled. He sat at the defense table, not nervous, but ready. Judge Grayson peered over his glasses, squinting. Case 47-19, Luis Alvarez, Financial Compliance Review. Still chasing that trucking dream? Are we? A few chuckles from the gallery. Luis stood, voice clear. Yes, Your Honor. I've brought documentation as ordered. Grayson smirked. Let's see if it's more than wishful thinking this time. Luis handed the clerk a folder. Exhibit A, contracts with 6 clients. Exhibit B, Texas DOT carrier permit. Exhibit C, commercial insurance. Exhibit D, $6,000 Valor Venture grant. Exhibit E, 2 weeks of payment logs totaling $2,100. The room went still. Grayson flipped through, his smirk fading. This is all verified? Yes, sir. Updated daily. You're licensed, insured, and already generating revenue? Yes, Your Honor. Grayson leaned back, silent for the first time. Luis didn't gloat. He stood like a man who'd brought truth to a fight. The gallery stirred. A woman in the back, one of Luis's clients, clapped once, then again. Soon, veterans, small business owners, and community members joined in. A steady, defiant applause. Grayson didn't silence it. He cleared his throat. Mr. Alvarez, this is unexpected. Case dismissed. Then quieter. You've proven your point. Luis nodded, his face neutral until he stepped outside, the sun warming his skin. He hadn't just won a case. He'd dismantled a narrative. The courtroom moment didn't stay in 4C. A gallery member had recorded Luis's presentation and posted it to a Latino business forum online. By evening, it had 60,000 shares. By morning, it was on regional news sites with the headline, Judge mocks Latino veteran's dream. He returns with a business that proves him wrong. Alvarez Freight Company's inbox exploded. Requests from businesses in New Mexico and Arizona. Veterans wanting to work for him. A nonprofit offering to cover insurance for a year. A local council member invited him to speak on minority entrepreneurship. Luis stared at the messages, stunned. The judge who'd sneered had accidentally amplified his mission. Luis stayed focused. He called his Valor Venture mentor Sofia Rivera. Keep me humble, he said. She laughed. You're standing on steel, Luis. Just build. Within 3 months, he'd leased a second truck, hired 2 part-time drivers, both Latino veterans, and expanded to 3 counties. He partnered with a food bank to deliver surplus goods, adding to his mission, Alvarez Freight Company. From service to solutions, we deliver dignity. He began speaking at community centers, not about hustle, but about defiance. They'll tell you to stay small, he'd say. They'll laugh because of your name, your accent, your skin. Don't argue. Show them results. On a crisp Monday, Luis returned to courtroom 4C, not as a defendant, but as a quiet observer in the back row. The docket churned through small claims and evictions. Then came case 52-30, State of Texas versus Javier Morales. A 26-year-old veteran, Javier stood at the defense table, his thrift store shirt too big, his hands clutching a thin folder. Luis saw himself in Javier's stiff posture, his yes, ma'am to the judge. Javier owed $1,800 on a defaulted loan for tools to start a mobile tire repair business. He had 2 clients, no profits, just a plan. Judge Elena Torres, new to the bench, frowned. Mr. Morales, without income, I can't waive this debt. What's your strategy? Javier faltered, doubt creeping in. Luis stood. Your Honor, may I speak? Torres nodded. Name? Luis Alvarez. Owner? Alvarez Freight Company. He stepped forward. Javier pitched me his tire service last month at a gas station. I told him if he could service my trucks for 5 days straight, I'd subcontract him. He did. This is his contract. $350 a week to start. Luis handed over a signed document. Javier's eyes widened. Torres read it, then looked at Javier. Debt deferred. Review in 60 days. The gavel fell softly. In the hallway, Javier caught up. Why'd you do that? Luis smiled. Someone bet on me when I was inches from breaking. I'm just paying it forward. He handed Javier a folder. Budget templates, a pitch guide, and a card with 4 words. Build anyway, Luis Alvarez. Because dreams don't die in courtrooms. They rise when someone dares to fight back with proof.